right, good morning. It's 7 minutes after 9 o'clock. Welcome to the point for today, Tuesday, the 19th day of November. And as you can see in the studio with me this morning, I've got a goodly gentleman, handsome as they come, very resourceful young man. I would like to refer him to as a former senator, caretaker. Current
former minister,
current senator. Yes, yeah. Thanks for the correction there. And he is actually the NNP's caretaker for the constituency of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. Of course, you know I'm speaking of none other than Senator Norland. Cox.
Yes.
Good morning. Welcome.
Pleasant morning. And good to be here. It's been a while since I've been in studio. But as you know, this morning may not be so pleasant for everybody.
Yeah.
But we want to wish everybody all the best and do hope that they're safe out there with this precipitation that we have in this morning, this abnormal weather that we've been experiencing. It's been tough for a lot of people. Some people had some significant losses. We also had a loss of a life, which we want to extend condolences. I know the family very well. So it's a tough time for them also. So a tough time for Petite Martinique as well. Petite Martinique been going through a lot over this past 4 months or so. So it's been a challenging time for our country, most of our communities. So we just have to continue to support each other as much as we can during this difficult time.
I'm glad that you touched on what's been happening in Petite Martinique and Carriacou to an extent. Hurricane Beryl passed on the 1st of July. How are things? I've seen you on recent social media footage planting back coconut trees and so forth. On the ground, what is it like in Carriacou and Petite Martinique as it relates to the rebuilding efforts and reconstructing? Even there might be still cleaning, especially we hear a lot of talk about Carriacou and not so much about Petite Martinique. Give us as much as you can on what's actually happened on the Beryl and what has happened since.
Well, what has happened, Petite Martinique in itself would have been destroyed as much as Carriacou, and so same large portion of the houses are destroyed. Persons are displaced. Persons who had whatever gainful employment, some businesses are basically non-functional. They are damaged. So it's tough for Petite Martinique, especially because of the size of Petite Martinique, and it's more difficult for persons. I know a number of persons from Petite Martinique would have moved down to Grenada with families. Some persons would have come for school and other reasons. But it has been very difficult for Petite Martinique. Probably go further to say I'm very concerned about the slowness in response recovery effort for Petite Martinique in particular. While some efforts have been targeted towards Carriacou, I think Petite Martinique has really been somewhat left a little bit behind in terms of response there. I think there is a clear opportunity to do much better for the people of Petite Martinique, and so I'm kind of making a call for that. I've been there as recent as Thursday, and it's difficult for them.
Do we still have people living in makeshift houses, tarpaulin?
Yeah, certainly. Both Carriacou and Petite Martinique, it's difficult. There are still persons in shelters in Carriacou, as you know. So persons who have lost their house entirely, of course, they have been displaced. There are some efforts to have housing made available, or houses made available for persons who are displaced, and we trust that the persons who actually get in the houses are persons who actually who had a house before and lost it. We want to ensure that, because we know that there would not be enough for everybody. So we want to thank the NGO. There's an NGO out of Trinidad and Tobago who donated 27 prefab houses. So those houses are being erected now. We just want to thank them for that. I think that is a very noble effort on their part. I think the government is supporting in terms of other houses as well. I think they are planning to do like 50 houses. That was mentioned. But so far, none of those houses are quite completed yet, but there are a few of them already under construction. So some work is being done in terms of meeting persons in that regard. But the biggest challenge remains for Carriacouans and Pidimantnicans is the issue of housing, especially at a time like now where rain fell from midnight to 4 o'clock this morning in Carriacou and Pidimantnic. So it was a tough night for most persons who are still on the taps.
And just after Hurricane Beryl, the passage of Hurricane Beryl, I was speaking with a prominent businessman from Carriacou, and he was stating that the people from Carriacou are willing to spend their monies to rebuild. All right? All they were requesting then was removal of the taxes and purchasing of the materials and so forth. I think the government has since then announced that these taxes have been removed for a period and unspecified goods. How has that impacted the process up there?
I mean, I did spoke on this matter before, and unfortunately, that measure has never really worked out as the persons who were impacted intended. Persons had significant difficulties and still do have difficulties in terms of being able to go to a hardware store and not to be able to attract the VAT and things like that. As recent as this week, somebody had some difficulty with that, trying to get some stuff from one of the hardware in particular. No need to call him. But it has been a challenge. So there seemed to be like a lack of communication or coordination between maybe the Inland Revenue and those business places to allow for the VAT not to be incurred. But it seems like that has not worked, and we raised that concern that there needs to straighten this out. So some persons, because of frustration, they just go ahead and just buy the materials.
So we still have businesses adding the tax to the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Because some of the businesses are very concerned that they may not be able to recoup back from government because they have not been properly no proper engagement or agreement between them and government. So they fear to take the chance. They understand, they heard the announcement, but there is some challenges there. So that is something that the government needs to work on urgently and maybe further extend it for another 6 months, seeing that it has not worked for the past few months. It has not really worked properly. It has not really impacted persons as the way that it was intended. So there might be an opportunity to further extend it and to tidy up that process. Also, the issue with support through the GDB for business reactivation. That is also a pretty tidy process. Persons would have to come up with securities and things like that to be able to get those loans. There is a grant component. You can only have access to the grant only if you qualify for the loan first. So that is the challenge there. So I did recommend that there is this. What taking place in Carriacou and Pidimantnic presents an excellent opportunity in terms of providing maybe a grant support for the businesses to help them get off the ground. Something similar to what we did with CES during the COVID time, where we give support. I know here that they're announcing income support, which is also good. But a grant support for businesses, there is not. I don't think that it is beyond government to be able to support those businesses. So I think that there is a clear opportunity there for doing that. But the measure so far, from my estimation and analysis, has not really impacted the persons who are affected as they are intended. So they need to relook that.
Okay. As it relates to the rebuilding process for Carriacou and Pidimantnic, all right, we know for a fact that the hurricanes are just going to get more intense. We're going to have more flooding. Earthquakes are very prevalent around the region now and so forth. Are the people in Carriacou in rebuilding the Carriacou? Are you seeing engineers around who are making the proper analysis and assessment and giving advice, professional advice to the people who are rebuilding, so that we cannot not have a hurricane, but that when the hurricanes come, not if, but when they come, the houses are better prepared to mitigate against them?
Yes, I must say that the physical planning department, they are physically on the ground, and there have been a couple training sessions, seminars to edify persons in terms of building back better. I think some people from the Caribbean Development Bank and some of the institutions who have been investing in this country for a number of years saw it fit to do so. But I think that is only one aspect of it. I think that we have a greater challenge from me in my assessment in terms of looking at the integrity of building materials now in comparison to 10, 20 years ago. It's chalk and cheese. So while in terms of what we do or how we build, we might improve on that. What we have seen is that is a deteriorating in terms of the quality of material. I was moving some rafters earlier this week at my mom's house, and I pick up this 2x6. I was like, this thing is like paper. I mean, this
light.
It's the wood is actually dried. I mean, with a good breeze, that can easily break, So those are some of the things that we're seeing. You look at material that coming out from houses that were built in the 50s. They have this glue running out of those lumber. You don't see that now. So I think that is what is happening. While there is a move in terms of improving in how we build, the quality of building materials is somewhat deteriorating. So we have to pay some attention to that as well.
The structural integrity of the material.
Yeah.
So that's just how it's going to continue, right? Because companies are looking for the shortcuts to reduce on costs and up their profitability and so forth. Now, as it relates to the logistics on the ground in Carriacou, in terms of managing the distribution of the resources, the aid, and so forth. For example, I had a good friend of mine, Grenadian based in the U.S., working along with Donnie McClurkin and so forth. They came right after Beryl came, do an assessment, went back up, had a concert, raised some funds, and came back to build, to assist with the building of a couple houses. And we have a lot of benevolence taking place up there.
Yeah.
All right. But in terms of the actual managing of what is coming to Carriacou, the logistics of it, are you satisfied that funds and resources and assistance is being disbursed in a way that it should, that with equity and things like that? We know politics always gets in the way.
Well, I have been consistent in my response to this particular issue, and I did indicate that there is clearly a lack of proper management, and even in terms of structure, in terms of planning, a lot of it is more reactive than proactive, and hence the reason why I believe that even our recovery is moving much slower than it's supposed to. And I've stated that I've given clear reasons, justification why that is the case. If you do not plan, it lends itself for chaos, and that is what is happening. Like, for example, I could tell you. So, in recent time, we had some support from institutions, organizations, friendly countries who would have sent a few hundred black tanks to Carriacou, some to support farmers, I think some specifically for staff, government staff, some for the public, for different purposes. But you're hearing, and person giving you instances where that they can call several persons and get a tank, So it goes to show that there is no clear structure of how that particular resource is managed. There is so much tanks came. Just imagine, about 500 tanks came for farmers, only just for farmers. And Carriacou is a pretty small place. I worked in agriculture for 15 years, working with farmers, and so I have a clear indication as to the farming population. While you do have subsistence farming at the household level, but I'm talking about hardcore farmers. It's not a lot. No, it's not 100. So if 500 tanks came, the farming community is supposed to be handled properly without any discontent. But you're hearing issues and challenges with that. And so, that's just one of the examples that I'm saying that it needs to be managed. There is no reason for that to be not. It's just black tanks. There's only one thing you could do with them: put water in them and take the water out for whatever purpose. So that shouldn't be too difficult. And so I just give a small example of some of the issues that persons have been speaking about, and that is from the people. And I think, in fairness, if the ministry of the government needs to find out a true sense of what the response is and the impact of it, whether it is working, find out from the people. Find out from the people who you're supposed to be serving, whether or not they are contented with how those things are being handled. And so I leave that for them to, because, something I could sit here and I could give my own account, and certainly persons may call and be in disagreement with me and indicate differently. But I know that I'm correct based on feedback you go around. I meet several persons who would have even asked me if I have some way to find out how they can get a tank, because they have been trying. If there's somebody I could call, I don't know anybody I could call. I mean, if there is a proper structure, proper criteria for persons to receive a tank, what size it is,
you either qualify for one or you don't.
Oh, you don't.
Okay.
And I know that a number of persons who may not be farming may be also in need of a tank. They may lose their roof. They may want to store water. Sometimes they want to use a tank for the dry period. They may just want 2 tanks alone while they tidy up the place, while they wash out their main cistern. So I think those are some of the things that are scenarios that are presently on the ground. But I think a lot of the problems stem from the government not being able to produce hard numbers. But you would hear us say, like, for example, 50% of the houses are damaged, or 90% of the houses are damaged. But we have not heard 10 homes lost a roof, 20 homes lost windows. Those data are not there, so it's clear that those work are incomplete. How much families are impacted. I think without those core data material, those data information, it is very difficult for the government to respond appropriately to some of the issues. If you're working on assumptions, then you will assume something wrong. And so I think that is one of the reasons why they're having that challenge in terms of the response, because they don't have all the data. I have not heard at any point in time, I stand corrected, a figure number of how much homes that have been damaged, and at what level. I understand that they indicate there are some category 1 and category 2, something like that they had announced, but not defining it and having a number. I've seen in other responses where you have a number, or we have, based on the data we collect, we have 200 homes damaged, so something like that. I'm certain that Grand Lake would have numbers to know how much persons that are out without power. So that was also a good source for them to get that information, because once persons have their roof, when they don't have their roof off, they weren't able to get power. So that is another area that they could have quickly get those information from. So those are some of the weaknesses, those are some of the challenges, but I still think that there's an opportunity for them to fix that, to correct it going forward, because there's a lot to be done still. As I said before, and I say it again, I personally would want the government to succeed, because if they fail, the people of Carriacou and Petit Manding would not benefit in that regard in terms of the response and recovery effort. We want them to do good, but they seem to be having some challenges, especially in the Petit Manding end.
Okay. All right. Tell you what, folks, it's 26 minutes after 9 o'clock. We take a quick commercial break. We'll be back. It's To The Point, speaking with Senator Norland Cox. We'll be back after these messages. Don't you go anywhere.
the days are hot and we can't work or sleep comfortably, we toss and turn. Why continue to suffer? Modern Electrical Solutions has the solution. They have the best air conditioning units and staff to serve and advise you. So why delay? Modern Electrical Solutions can save your days and nights. Call today and receive 10% off on all AC units, repairs and maintenance work during the months of November and December 2024. Call 440-7935, 416-7410 or 534-0037 or visit them at Snow Corner, St. George. See you soon.
Grenada Duty Free and GBN, we're a partner for this Christmas season. Folks, it's going to be a bumper one. We can actually start feeling the energy, the vibe is start building, the promotions that start coming in, and the fragrances, the chocolate. We have up to 15%, 20%, 40%. It's going to be a crazy one. We are looking forward to seeing you. We are ready to treat you guys special. We are ready to give back to you after this whole year of, being with us and everything and the support. So with our partnership with GBN, it's going to be a bumper season. Looking forward to seeing you guys.
Proud sponsors of Christmas with GBN includes Ace Hardware, Hubbard's, Flow, Duty Free Caribbean, and I'm Supportings.
I'm Stacia Blake with GBN News. From all of us here at the Grenada Broadcasting Network, we wish you and your family a joyous holiday season filled with peace, love, and happiness. Thank you for continuing to make GBN our nation's #1 newscast. It's been our honor throughout 2024 to bring you timely updates of local and international news, and we'll continue to earn your trust as we move into 2025. We wish our beautiful island nation God's continued protection as we move forward as one people who are on one journey with one future. Happy holidays from the GBN News team.
I want you to control your anger. There's a way to feel better. That's one thing to remember. No matter where you are, you can be a star. Stop and take a deep breath and relax yourself. Take another deep breath and relax it, and relax it. Eliminate violence.
Welcome back to The Point for today, Tuesday, the 19th day of November. I'm speaking with Senator Norland Cox, NNP's caretaker for the constituency of Carriacou and Pidi-Matnik. There's no point in just, doing all the preamble about burial and the passage of burial and so forth. This is politics. And had it been the now opposition, a New National Party, had it been the NNP in office with the passage of Hurricane Beryl, the recovery efforts, what would the NNP have done differently?
Well, it's a very, very good question and an interesting one. And I think it's important to start off first that the National Party, we have proven ourselves in every crisis when we were in government in this country, and we have responded successfully. So we have the experience, we have the know-how. One of the things that we would have done much, much differently is obviously we would have been able to pool people together, pool a number of key persons within our community sectors to work together and help with the restoration process. One of the difference that we found is there was a clear task, a clear action to sideline certain key persons even the responses, the support from the international community, I think it was curtailed. It was too short. There is only one international organization that I see on island right now, working directly with the government, which is the World Food Program. So you had a situation where you had the Samaritan Purse, who brought a number of small mobile desalination units. You're going into a dry season. You have water challenges. I don't understand how you would let those units actually leave the island and go to another island, knowing that you have a pending challenge coming with for water. So that is one of the things that we would have done differently. We would have ensured that we keep those organizations and institutions on island as long as possible to help with the recovery process, to help with our schools, to help with a number of things, because they would help in whatever area that you ask. And so even to help with the rebuilding, we could have get them to come in with a team of workers. We could help them they would have helped with building materials, a number of things that they would have helped with. But if we tell them we are okay and we're good to go, we don't need them, they would leave. And basically that is what happened. So it's a bit of misinformation that has been going out to the public, more so on social media, to give the impression that everything is all fine and dandy in Carriacou and Piti Matnik, which is not entirely true. And so that is one of the things. One, they don't have a plan, they don't have a solid plan, and there seems to be some discontent in terms of working relationship among the staff. We are hearing reports that the permanent secretary might be replaced, and it's an allegation. We don't know, so we're just watching to see. So there are talk there is discontent in terms of the operations and the administration of stuff. So I am saying that you do not want that at this point in time. You want to have a seamless operation, especially when you have a number of persons who require support from the government. So those are some of the issues. Those are some of the challenges. And obviously, we would have done that much better. We have done it recently as COVID, how we operated. We had a strategic team that met every single day for months, every single day, to deal and to trash out every issue as they arise. I was responsible for procurement. So that was my responsibility on the COVID team. So all the tests, supplies, gloves, PPEs, I was like liaising with all institutions, organizations all over the world, even the PCR machine, all those stuff. I was able to help get persons to donate those. That was my responsibility. Trying to find ways, looking at charter and flights to get stuff in. So it was one of a challenging time for us, but we work as a team and delegate responsibilities. And so I think that is the difference, by not having a plan, by not engaging persons who know, even on NADMA end also, find that some of the operations there were a lot of challenges there. Now, a lot of pilfering, a lot of reports of pilfering taking place, stuff missing. So I think that because of politics, it has caused it to derail the whole relief and recovery effort. And I think that is where we differ. Even we had our responses. The party, we had our own response efforts on the ground. And we never made it political. We provide hot meals for everybody who came. We went to the homes of persons who are not sympathizers of the party, who needed a meal at the time. And we did that for weeks and months. So that is what we would have done differently. When you have a situation where everybody's impacted, you have to have that discipline. You have to have that maturity, that political maturity, to be able to work with everybody and to help everybody during this crisis. But that didn't happen. That didn't happen. I think that is a big difference. They double down on it politically. While speaking that they're trying to help everybody, they double down politically. And there are a lot of reports, that this is not the platform to speak to some of those things.
When you're in the campaign trail, you'll get to the intricacies of that. Yeah. But if I have not been to Carriacou nor Petite Martinique since the passage of Beryl, all right? And so I am going to ask you that question. If I was to walk through the streets of Carriacou or Petite Martinique now, let's say I drop off in Petite Martinique and I walk up by the school and I go up by Millennium Plaza up there and so forth, and I speak with residents as to what's happening, how are they feeling now, what is the cry, what are the sentiments, the main sentiments from your honest perspective? What are the things people in Carriacou are saying? We just had a situation with the removal of sunken vessels and so forth in Carriacou. They've now moved down, all right? So we know the fishing stock and people with the luxury yachts and so forth being affected. The general cry on the ground in Carriacou at the moment, what is the main cry?
Well, from my takeaway is that persons find that the response is slow, it's tardy. Persons find that there is a significant unfairness in terms of how the resources are being dispersed. Yeah, and like for example, the situation with the garbage. Yeah. We spoke on this matter at length on several instances and several platforms. And initially, they started to barge the garbage out. I think they probably had about two barge loads that came to Grenada. For whatever reason, I don't know, it stopped. And so now what is taking place, the Galvanize in particular is being moved from one dump site to, I think they're moving all to Harveyville. So basically the garbage has not left the island as yet. So that is visible, persons are seeing that, and in their mind, their response is that they see this as a waste of resources. Why keep moving the garbage from one side to the next? Why not just move it off the island? So those are some of the feedback persons are giving, and that is how they're seen. There might be reasons why the government is doing that. But if persons don't understand and they don't give persons that kind of information, they see it as wastage, because you're paying trucks to move it from one side to the next. You pay a truck to bring it here, then you're paying the next truck to take it up from there to bring it to another side. The question is, are you taking it off the island, or what they're going to do with it? But it has to be dealt with. So all the playing fields, except for the mini stadium, are fully compromised. They are no longer accessible for what they're intended for. They are all official dump sites. So instead of solid waste having one main dump site, they have several dump sites to manage right now. So that is the issue. So persons are speaking about those issues. They're speaking about the slowness in terms of response. I think the government started to issue building materials to persons. I think it's $15,000 worth of materials, and so I really want to commend Carriacouans, for the efforts, because $15,000 worth of material with the cost of material nowadays is not a whole lot. And so for persons who I see rebuilding, whether you receive that small support with material support from government, the extent in terms of the damage and the work that they have to do, we know that they are putting out a whole lot. And so I really want to commend them for that, in terms of being able to be resilient in this time, because it is not easy. It is not easy to deal with this. I know your roof may go back, but then the whole of the inside of the house needs to be redo. Sometimes you have to do cupboards, closets, furniture, appliances. So those are some of the challenges that persons are facing right now. So really and truly, largely, the rebuilding efforts are really and truly the private people doing their own rebuilding. They are taking the blunt of the financial support expense. So saving a part that government is giving is $15,000 worth of materials for persons. They have to bear the rest.
Okay. Now, folks would remember that from the passage of Beryl, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, who is responsible for the NADMA and so forth, has been very active. As a matter of fact, he's been, integrally involved, visiting the various. I know that he visited Carriacou and so forth immediately after Beryl and has been constantly in touch. So, if I'm going to ask a funny question.
Sure.
Have you been appointed as the advisor to the Prime Minister at this time, with his role in national disaster relief and management and so forth? What would you have said to him?
Well, I did I did publicly made a couple of clear recommendations to him. I don't know if he heard them, but I did make some recommendations and made them in honest. I believe that they were recommendations I believe that he should really look at. I always call, especially the issue of initially there was this issue of relief materials coming in, and there was some measure put in place, and so persons were a little bit confused whether it's not whatsoever. So I think that needed to be tidied up a little bit. I think there was not clear enough explanation to the public as to why asking persons to address the supplies to NADMA so that it wouldn't attract any duties or so. And I think that was not made clear, so persons had some challenges. And persons sent stuff for me. I had to go to NADMA to retrieve it. All they came on my name. So there were a little bit of mix-up and in that regard. So those are things that that could have been easily addressed. And the whole issue of the relief efforts from the fiscal measures that they are taking, I think that it needs to be relooked. Like, for example, they indicated that persons can only bring in 2 pieces that wouldn't attract duties on the port. So if it's 2 barrels, or if it's 2 crates or 2 appliances, there are some persons who, in case of a business, they have more than 1 refrigerator. So if it's damaged in a hurricane, why, once they can show that the business, they had this and the business operated with that, why not being able to give an opportunity to replenish back those things? They are already buying the equipment. All they're asking for is for it not to attract any duties so that they can get the business back up and going. But you are saying only 2. Like, for example, a sports bar that might lose, they have 2 televisions or 3 televisions, they may lose them. They're only able to buy 1 or buy 2. They're only able to buy the fridge. They're only able to get the concession on the fridge, not buy, but only able to get the concession on the fridge or the TV. So why restrict it to 2? So I think that was presenting some challenges for a number of persons. And I think I did spoke on that and asked him for him to review that. And I'm also calling on the measure through GDB for it to be more easy for persons to be able to get that financing to get the business off the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Folks, in case you're wondering the time, it's 15 minutes on to 10 o'clock. Not much time left. I want to ask this: the current state of governance, all right? Not just looking at post-Beryl. All right, we're looking at the Grenada as is now. If you have been asked to evaluate the Grenada economy and so forth, we've been seeing a lot of actions here, there, and everywhere from the current administration. How would you assess the Grenada economy at this moment?
Well, I need to be fair, and not to make any statement in context without me having the relevant information, or circumstances in which some things may or may not happen. So I think it might be unfair for me to do that. But I think being the former minister for infrastructure development, I think maybe I could narrow down within that context and to see that in terms of the capital investment, it has declined somewhat, and that in itself will have some impact on the country's economy in terms of impact on businesses and services, because infrastructure development is very critical and very instrumental in terms of the recovery, the speed at which a country recovers. And so with the reduction in the investment in infrastructure, while we see a budgeted sum, but the actual investments in infrastructure has somewhat dwindled. We haven't seen any new major initiative projects or so come in. And so that in itself is also a challenge, will present a challenge. Because what happens with infrastructure development, and the reason why it's so intrusive, and the reason why it's so important for our economy, is that it impacts so much of other sectors. When an infrastructure project is approved or commenced, you have activity on the port. Yeah, so materials have to come in. You have your hardware stores, your lumber yards being impacted. You have your workers, carpenters, masons. You have the places, the buses, because people have to move to and from work. You have the people who sell the meals, the lunches on a daily basis. They go to various construction sites to sell. Because if you don't have a construction site, that person who normally goes around and sell the juice, the little sandwich, the little snack, the little wrap or whatsoever, if they're in a construction site, that is a market that is non-existent. And so that is the reason why infrastructure development is so important, because what it does, it triggers all the other sectors quickly. It's more intrusive than say tourism. So a tourist ship would come. People would come, they would buy from the other places, but they wouldn't go to the hardware store. They may not go to the hardware store, they may not take the bus. Yeah, they may walk, but they may purchase from another store. So infrastructure has a wider span in terms of how it impacts our economy, in terms of creating employment. And again, tourist is somewhat seasonal to some extent in terms of its intensity, in terms of the benefits, is through a particular period. So that is the reason why I believe they have really faltered. I did call on the Prime Minister. I thought that maybe he should probably hand the ministry over to somebody else who can be there more physically, seeing that he has been engaged in travel for whatever reason. He has been engaged in travel indicated for development and promoting Grenada. But infrastructure development is so critical that it's important that you have the minister supposed to be there on the ground. And I just want to dive into the whole issue of the MIT, because somebody may say MIT is there. But I said it at the Parliament, and I said publicly, I don't believe how that ministry is constructed. It's going to be work. It won't work. It's not going to be effective, which we see, because the ministry is not clearly defined, and it is overlapping into other ministries, and so it doesn't have a clear objective. It doesn't have a clear objective in the sense that you cannot come at the end of the day and say, look, these are 10 things that we are set out to do, and we have achieved those without overlapping into another ministry. And so I did indicate that I don't think that ministry was necessary. What I think was needed was a strong department, a strong division for implementation, and not a ministry in itself. And so that has been my take, and I stand corrected. But I said it.
That's your personal take.
Yeah.
All right. In the interest of time, it's 10 minutes on to 10 o'clock. We've got 10 minutes left on the program. It's clear and obvious that there is some I'll say it as raw as I can, some leadership upheaval in the NNP. All right, and this administration is 2.5 years into its term, which is usually 5 years. It could be called earlier and so forth. Would you say that NNP is solid and sound and united and united force at the moment?
I would say yes, and I want to probably change your word from upheaval to maybe exciting. I think when you have a situation where organization you have persons expressing interest in leading something, it says a whole lot about it, as against if nobody's showing interest. Not so. They say there's a saying that old people doesn't pelt stone behind empty mango tree. Okay. So within that context, I don't see it as a negative. I see it as a positive. And so with every party, you have every organization, you have your transitioning, you have your work to do, you have your government, they have their own challenges, I presume. But I believe the spotlight is on the New National Party. And I think the reason for that is that persons believe that we are the better choice for Grenada, and based on our track record, we have done an excellent job, I believe, despite whatever challenges that we might have had, whatever mistakes that we might have made. We're not perfect. Of course, you're going to have mishaps. You're going to make some decisions that are not going to pan out as you intended to be. But in summing it up, the National Party has done a lot for this country. You look around at some of the institutions that we would have built, some of the structures. We are proud to be able to do that. Some of the things that this government spoke against, that they are now embracing some of the same policies and initiatives that we have put in place. They are now embracing it as if it's theirs. Okay. So
in the interest of time, right? Yeah. A convention must be called. All right, it's constitutionally mandated by the New National Party. When that convention is called, we've got a number of people who have shown interest in the leadership, as we know. Peter David, Lynn Pierre. We're hearing talks of newly installed Senator Dwight Horsford. Would you throw yourself in the mix?
9:52 a.m.
Oh, sorry.
Would you throw yourself in the mix for leadership?
I wouldn't say that's not something that I'm considering at this point in time. No, I'm not considering that.
Not do you think the question that everybody is asking, do you think Doc will bow out?
I believe so. I think he has given a signal that he is our last meeting in New York. He spoke publicly, and he said that he is pleased and satisfied with the team that he has, and he will be there to guide the party through the process. And so I feel very confident about where we are.
So when the convention is called, there is a more than likely possibility that there will be a new leader of the New National Party.
I want to believe so, but in politics there is nothing that is certain.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's accommodate a few calls now. Caller, good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Gordon. Thank you for taking my call. Morning to Senator Cox, and thank you for informing us and gracing us with your presence. Senator Cox, as with regards to the what you refer to as garbage in Carriacou, bearing in mind that over 90% of the housing stock in Carriacou has been destroyed or touched in some ways, do you think that it is fair for the authorities to find a place to store this debris temporarily? This is not the everyday garbage that is coming from the house. That would attract flies, and so you must find a way to clear up in order for you to go ahead with construction. And I've recently heard that they launched a program where over 20-something people in Carriacou will be getting new houses very soon. It is alleged that a young lady in Carriacou with 8 children was approached to be given a furnished house, and she refused. What do you, as opposition, do or intend to do to address this situation? Because this is a need. The children are the future of the nation. They're our children. And somehow, somebody like that ought to be given counseling and help, in my opinion. What do you, as opposition, intend to do to address this situation immediately? I thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those questions. And it's very important. I'm very happy that she asked those questions, and I'll deal with it as she asked. So the first one has to do with the issue of the disposal of the garbage. Yes. Now, we So when they started to throw garbage in Hillsborough pasture. The intent was to clean up the tongue as quickly as possible. You look for the shortest distance. I think some of the roads were a bit impassable at the time, so they dump in Hillsborough. Before they went to the other sites, the government were informed that, look, we don't believe throwing the garbage in the plain fields is the best thing to do right now. Looking at the fact that in terms of recovery, people who want a place to recreate, to play whatsoever going forward. So don't do that. There's ample lands in Dumfries, in close proximity of the current dump site where those garbage could have been stored. And I'm saying that because the fact is that the government just cleared acres of said land to put some of the prefab houses that were donated by the Trinidad organization. 27 houses that were donated. Yeah, so it's within that context that we indicated that probably wasn't the best decision, and we did ask them not to pour in the other fields, which they did. Yeah, so it's within that context I said so. So it would have been easier to have all those garbage in Dumfries away from the proximity of schools, of residents now, and there would have been no rush to move those garbage right away into incur major costs for the government. But where they are currently, it is not healthy for residents. It is not healthy, so government is forced to move them out in a timely manner.
Okay.
So that is the challenge. The second thing she spoke about was the houses. Yes, as I said, the houses have been donated. I did say so, and the houses have been currently constructed. I did mention that previously. Regarding the issue with a lady who was alleged that she refused the house, that is not what from what I understand. I heard the incident. I saw the back and forth on Facebook, and I was really not pleased in the way the young lady was really attacked. You have to understand sometimes the consequences and sometimes the context in which some people make some decisions. So I did had a conversation with the young lady sometime after everything had died down. I had a conversation with her to find out what really is the issue, what really transpired. Because I said, let everything die down, all the chaos, and let me just find out. And this is the first time I'm speaking about it publicly. She did indicated that she came and she was offered a house. And I'm saying this also in the context that the ministry have a policy, they implement a policy with that. I think where those persons were residing, they indicated that there were flooding challenges. And now that the houses were damaged, they wanted them not to go back there. All right? So that is what I understand. So some of the persons, they're asking them to move, and some of the persons, they indicated that they're fine, they can remain there. She indicated that she has another piece of land, her parents have a piece of land within the same area, the proximity of the area, and which falls within the area that they deem as safe to build. And she requested that the house go there. That's what she indicated to me. She said she did not deny the house, but did not want to move from the area, but asked for the house to build because she indicated that someone else, the government is also building a house for someone else in close proximity to where her parent land is. So that is what I know of the matter. If other things, if any other thing discussed, that is what was conveyed to me. I can't say what she conveyed to them when she spoke to them or not. So I did ask her to at least go back and speak to them and show them the land and let them know that you have authority to occupy the land so that you can get the house on the land. So I that is what I know of that matter in particular.
All right. Okay. Folks, it's 10 o'clock. It's time to wrap the program. Could you imagine that? That time has elapsed on us. But nonetheless, any closing remarks?
Well, I think first of all, I'm ending where I should start. Today's International Men's Day. You know, I mean, as men, as fathers, as husbands, as we community leaders in some aspects, we do have to recognize the contribution that we make and how important the male figure is in every community and most in household in terms of development. So I am happy and encouraging our young men and some of our older men to guide the younger ones so that we can shape and mold our male figurehead into what we want our grader to be. So I just wanted to say that. And also to out there with the flooding, asking persons to be safe, and for persons who had significant losses last week and maybe impacted this week, it's not easy. I'm telling you, it's not easy. And even in Carriacou, a number of persons would have had a wet night. It's difficult. It's very difficult, I can tell you. And we are hoping and praying that persons continue to have the strength and able to get the resources or the help to have their homes restored as we move into this Christmas season. It's going to be a very strange Christmas for a number of persons. Some persons are not at their house; they're either by somebody else or on the mainland. So it's a different time for us in Carriacou. The business community is also having a tough time. I didn't speak on this, but just to say quickly, the fishing community. I know that the fishermen they have been a little bit of disgruntledness in terms of some remuneration that was promised to them by government. I think I don't know if it's a matter of government not having the funds or the whole process, but I think there was a lapse in the whole how it was done. In the sense that you're indicating to fishermen to go to the bank and check, and persons keep going every week and nothing is there. My thing is that if you know that something is intended for me, you ensure that it has been transferred to persons that come before you inform them to go. So you're having people keep going. It just looks so, very unprofessional. I think persons have become very hopeless that they will get that support. I am very hopeful that they may get it because they need it. Some of the persons have put out a lot in terms of to get the boat back on the water. Some persons have unable to do so currently. So I'm calling the government, asking them to please tighten up that process. I was hearing reports on the weekend that some persons started to receive that payout, but a lot are still uncertain as to. So maybe some statement by the government to ease the minds of the fishing community on the status of those monies, I think will be helpful.
Senator Cox, thank you for dropping by this morning, and I do wish all the best for the folks on the Sister Isles of Carriacou and Petite Martinique as it relates to recovery and getting back to some semblance of normalcy. And if the good Lord spare our lives, we'll have another conversation sometime in the not too distant future.
Certainly. Look forward to it.
All the best.
Yes.
Folks, that has been the program To The Point for this morning. Thank you very much for your participation one way or the other. And if the good Lord spare our lives, we'll have another one at another date. Thank you. Bye-bye.